Hello and welcome to the first lecture for Unit 11. This lecture is over Chapter 11, Section 1, and that has to do with early industry. Basically, every lecture in this unit will have something to do with how something is changing to change the way people live in America. And this one, we're looking at how the growth of early industry and new inventions changed the way people make things, buy things, sell things, just how basically all of those things change the way people live. Basically, after the War of 1812, right up here, the way people made things completely changed. For centuries, people had made clothing, furniture, and other goods in their home. Okay, so before the War of 1812, people made everything in their home. If they needed some shirts or some pants, they made them at home, or they went to somebody's house who made them and bought them from them. They didn't go to stores or anything like that. After the War of 1812, factory machines started replacing hand tools, and large-scale factories started making large amounts of goods. This change from things being made in the home to things being made in factories is called the Industrial Revolution. And that's basically the starting off point. It all there's a separation here. Before the War of 1812, you have people making things in homes. After the War of 1812, manufacturing increased, factories increase, and people start building things in factories. The Industrial Revolution had started in Britain before it started in America. The British had figured out how to make spinning mills, which are basically mills that use water power, and you can create a lot of good things. Like, you can make a lot of things with spinning mills, and it's a lot more efficient. You can run more machines at one time. The British did not want any of the people that knew how to build spinning mills to leave Britain, because basically, if Britain is the only country that can make these spinning mills and can use them in their country, that means that the British have a monopoly on this, and they can make a whole bunch of money off of it. They can produce a whole bunch of goods. It can be cheaper, and they make all the money, and they don't want anybody else to be able to do that. So they don't want people that know the secrets of these spinning mills to leave the country. But in 1793, Samuel Slater snuck the secrets of the spinning mills away from Britain to America, and he started setting up mills in New England. New England was a good place to build these factories because the factories needed to be powered by water, and New England had many fast-moving rivers. Basically, water flows by, it moves a turbine, and then the turbine then moves all of the wheels in the factory and powers the whole factory, basically. But you need a lot of fast-moving rivers, and because you're in New England and you have a lot of those, factories become popular in New England. Another reason that factories become popular in New England is because there is a good source of labor. There's a good source of labor because people in New England were tired of just trying to scrape by and scrape together a living from farming. In New England, you have poor soil. You do not have good soil to grow things, and therefore you cannot grow a lot, and you can definitely not make a lot of money. So people instead wanted to work in factories where every week you get the same amount of money. You get a set paycheck, and there's less risk involved in that. So people started leaving their farms, and they started moving into cities. So cities grow during this time. Some Americans, like Thomas Jefferson, did not want the United States to industrialize. Remember, Thomas Jefferson wanted a nation of farmers, and that is just not going to happen with all of the industrialization. That the times are a changing, basically, in the words of Bob Dylan. Okay. The Lowell Mills Hire Women. Francis Cabot Lowell built a factory that spun raw cotton into thread using power looms. Power looms basically are what they sound like. They're looms that are powered by other means than human power, I guess. Let's take a look at this video. This is a video of a person using a hand loom. Basically, you thread in by hand all of the little fabrics, all the little threads to create a fabric. If you look at your shirt, you can kind of see how there is thread interwoven together to make up the whole entire shirt. Now, can you imagine doing that all by hand on this machine? What the Lowell company does is they start to use these power looms, and it's basically doing the same thing that we just saw with that handmade or that hand-powered loom, but what's the main thing that you notice? It's a lot faster, okay? And what you have to remember is that you get paid more if your job is a higher skill level. So what takes more skill? The guy sitting down at the loom and doing everything by hand, or the guy that just has to sit here and stare at this machine and make sure it doesn't explode? Obviously, the guy that's sitting there, just, not doing anything is not going to get paid as much. The guy sitting there doing it by hand is going to get paid a lot more. So the factory also brought a large number of women into the workforce. And at first, wages were very high and things were good, but failing profits meant that wages went down and work conditions went down. At the beginning, things were good. People were getting paid $4 or $5 a week. But then the companies start losing money, and they start saying, oh, well, we're only going to pay you $1 a week, and you have to work a lot more to get that dollar. And so that's why working conditions go down. These mills also started to use steam engines instead of water power, which meant that they did not have to be right next to a river. They could be away from a river. As long as you can get a source of lumber or coal to burn in your steam engine, you can still power your factory. New manufacturing methods spread. The United States hired Eli Whitney to make 10,000 muskets for the Army. At this time, a gun would have to be made by hand, which was costly and it took a long time. If you were making 50 guns, the first one is going to be one way, and then the second one is going to be slightly different, and the third one is going to be slightly different from the first one, and the third one is going to be slightly different than the 10th one, and all this kind of stuff. So if a piece broke on that gun, you can't just change out the part. You can't just grab another trigger from the pile and put it in the gun. What you have to do is you have to make a whole new part for that specific gun. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. And if it takes a lot of skill, that means you have to pay that person more money. So if a gun broke, you would have to make a completely new piece by hand or make a completely new gun. This costs a lot of money. Okay? This is very expensive to do, and it takes a lot of time. All right. So what Eli Whitney does is he makes a gun completely out of interchangeable parts. And interchangeable parts are parts that are exactly the same. So if the trigger breaks in gun 1, you don't have to make a specific piece for gun 1. You can just pick up a trigger from the pile of pre-made triggers, and it will fit into this gun. This idea speeded up production, it made repairs easier, and allowed use of less skilled labor. And if it's less skilled, that means it is going to be less expensive. So less skilled equals less expensive. And if it's less expensive, more people can buy it, and that means you can sell more and make more money. New inventions improve life. New inventions during this time improved transportation, communication, and production, and they also quickened the pace of life. Robert Fulton created a steamboat that could travel upstream or against a strong wind or current. And what this does is it not only allows you to move upstream, but what that does for you is it makes it a lot quicker. Because if you were going downstream, that's one thing. You're going with the current. But now you have to go back upstream, and you have to paddle yourself. You have to use manpower to go upstream, and that is very tiring. It takes a lot of energy, and it just takes a lot longer. Okay, but now since you have an engine that is moving these wheels in the paddle wheels, you're going upstream, and you're just using the engine power, and it takes a lot less time. His first steamship was the Clermont. The boat made the round trip journey from New York City to Albany in a record 62 hours. This journey was about 154 miles. If today you took that trip, it would be, in 2012, it would be about 6 hours round trip. So 62 hours. Now it takes 6 hours round trip. But before the Clermont, it might take over a week to get from Albany to New York and back. So 1 week or 62 hours. 62 hours is a lot less time than 1 week. So having these steam-powered ships really sped up water travel. That's fine. That's all good and everything. This is a picture of the Clermont. Basically, you have a steam engine in this, and then in the middle of the ship right here, and then you have these wheels that turn, and it moves water, and you go forward without having to paddle or anything like that, or without having to really rely on wind. Now, if the wind is blowing this way, if you don't have the engine, you're not going to go forward. But if you have the engine, it doesn't matter which direction the wind's blowing. Cities that were not on the river also needed a way to transport goods, and the answer to this problem was the steam-powered locomotive. In 1830, Peter Cooper built America's first steam-powered locomotive called the Tom Thumb. Soon, train tracks would crisscross the nation. The introduction of the railroad is one of the most important events in American history. It creates a lot of jobs. It creates a lot of industry, steel factories, lumber, train factories, train companies, all this kind of stuff. That's what you will see later on in history. But Peter Cooper built the first train, built America's first steam-powered locomotive, 1830. In 1837, Samuel F.B. Morse demonstrated his telegraph, which sent pulses of electricity that stood for letters. These pulses could be translated into messages, and this meant that people could now communicate over long distances in a matter of moments. If we remember back to the Clermont, at the very least, that's the record, 62 hours. So if you want to get a message from somebody from Albany to New York, and you want a response back, at minimum, it's going to take 62 hours. But with the telegraph and this code, this Morse code, Morse code, things only took moments instead of hours. So you could communicate with people in a matter of moments, and it made everybody closer together and more unity and all this kind of stuff. Let's take a listen to this right here. Let's see here. This is a guy using the using Morse code. Hopefully the sound is working and everything like that. I don't know if it is, but whatever. He is going to be spelling out the alphabet. Basically, it's a series of pulses. If you can listen to this, let me take you back to this. I will show you this right here. So basically, like an A is like a short pulse, and then a long pulse, and then so forth and so on. You combine all of these series of letters into sentences and phrases and messages and all this kind of stuff. So that's what he's doing. So yeah. Technology improves farming. In 1837, blacksmith John Deere invented a lightweight plow with a steel cutting edge. The main reason we talk about this is because older cast iron plows were not good for the rich, heavy Midwestern soil. The Midwestern soil is really thick, it's really heavy, and the lightweight cast iron, the cast iron plows broke easily. They got a lot of mud on them. They didn't plow very well. But John Deere's plow made farming easier. It made it easier to plant crops. So if it's easier, more people are going to do it. More people are going to farm if it's easier. Okay. As a result, many farmers started to move to the Midwest. Another thing is the threshing machine, which was invented by Andrew Meikle, and it mechanically separated kernels of wheat from the husk. So instead of doing it by hand, you have a machine that does it for you. Another thing that replaces a lot of hard work is the mechanical reaper, which was developed in 1831 by Cyrus McCormick, which basically cut ripe grain quickly and efficiently. You have to cut it down, and you bale it up, and then you get all the grains off of it and all this kind of stuff. Both of these inventions improve farm production by making the work quicker and more efficient. And if it is quicker and it is easier and you can make more money because it's more efficient, more people are going to do it. And if we can grow more stuff, more people can buy that stuff, and we become more self-sufficient, which is James Madison's dream in the American system. New technologies linked regions and increased national unity. With better farm equipment, Midwest sent grain to feed the North. Factories in the North increased the need for cotton to be grown in the South. And because there was an increased need for cotton, this led to increase in slavery in the South. And we will look at what else leads to an increase in slavery in the South and what the results of that is in the second lecture. So that is early industry and inventions.